drawing for the first part sort of made already. I've taken the part is basically from 5.6 and created a front, right, and top view for that. And the instructions for 7.1 state that we have to use the chain dimensioning system, and we also have to use align dimensions for this. So I want to use this video to show you how you can actually make a sort of like a dimension profile. That when you create dimensions, you actually have this sort of like, let's call it like a style sheet, where you can assign certain features to always appear when you do dimensions. So for example, since we have to use align dimensioning, if I were to dimension this, and I'm not saying this is the right part to be dimensioning, or right feature you should be dimensioning, if I dimension this line on the left here, you'll see it's 1.25, okay? But because this problem wants me to use align dimensioning, this 1.25 would have to have vertical text. So to get it to have vertical text, first thing I'm going to do is escape out of my dimension tool. And if I right-click the dimension I've already placed, I can select what's called a new dimension style. And when I create a new dimension style, I'm allowed to make sort of like its own profile with its own settings. And I'm going to call this profile aligned. Okay? And all I really need to change in this profile is that the text on vertical dimensions should be vertical, right? So, so all I got to do is go to text, the tab, and then over here for linear dimensions, I'm going to switch the vertical dimension so that it is vertical. That's the only really big change I would have to make. So when you're done changing that, you just press OK. And now that text is given to you as a vertical dimension. Now, because we've assigned a style, when I go to the dimension tool for future work, I can actually select that style by default. If I go up to my top right toolbar here, you'll notice that the style that I just created is now in this menu. And if I were to go now and dimension further, here's a horizontal dimension, that's correct. If I want this one to be vertical, notice that it gives me text and also moves it out, as it should, because there's not enough space in there. So see, Autodesk does that for you, right? So any vertical dimension or any vertically lined dimension will have now vertical text if I use this aligned format, okay? And if I escape and go back in, I'll have to just remember to select that every time, okay? Now the other thing on this part you also have to create is a chain dimension. I just want to kind of walk you through again how to do chain dimensions. And you can automatically generate straight up chain dimensions using Autodesk. If I go to the chain option here, and then I click the features that I want to chain dimension, they'll show up as blue lines. When I right-click continue, it will generate those for me. Okay? This obviously is going to require me to use the align style, so I'm going to try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right-click continue, and this is all right. We'll have to play with some of the text placement on here. Obviously, this 0.25 is, we'll have to kind of move that out, and we can kind of click and drag and do that, and that's allowed. Okay, so this is a chain dimension, but because of the text orientation, it's best to offset that rather than having it in the same line. Okay, so you can use Autodesk to create chain dimensions as well. So this part, well, obviously you have to finish up the dimensions on here. You just have to make sure that if you were to ask somebody how long is that line, they should be able to answer it based on the dimensions you're providing. There's no curve features in this part, but they do want to make sure that the text for vertical dimensions is vertical and the text for horizontal dimensions is horizontal. So that's how you accomplish that for this. Have a nice day.